So today is Exodus 13, chapter 13, verses 17 through Exodus 14, all the way till Exodus 15. Man, that is a lot. But, as this is deep dive, I already read through the Bible once. I'm going to start doing something different. So, the lake. We usually say Red Sea and think of it as this. But what we don't think of as much is the Suez Canal prevented flooding from the Red Sea that goes into here. And technically these are still parts of the Red Sea. Like this lake right here, that's really not around that much because of the Suez Canal, is likely one of the lakes that could have been the crossing area, the Sea of Reeds, or here, down here. Because we think of the Sea of Reeds and immediately think Red Sea, which leads to the erroneous thing that the Exodus crossing happened somewhere in Arabia. It did not. It's the Sinai Peninsula. Anyway, so yes, this is the lake where the water parted and the Egyptians were drowned. Now you might think, because you're thinking of those movies, you're thinking of those Sunday school stories, where it's this big wall of water and this gigantic crushing waves as this endless ocean just opens up before them. Yeah, these are to make things look cool in a movie, or to make kids interested in something that's not necessarily the truth. Please don't make your view of the Bible off of Sunday school depictions. A lot of atheists still have a Sunday school depiction of the Bible in their minds. Actually, a lot of atheists only think there's one way of interpreting the Bible, the way they've been interpreting the Bible since they were Christians, and won't accept any other interpretation. Funny. Any other than it's false. Funny. Anyway, just like they used to when they were Christians, because they are still stuck in the dichotomy of it's true or false. So anyway, here's P. Ramses. Here's the lake. So they could have gone down this way for whatever reason. Dry. Maybe it's like drier up here, harder to get. It's more swampy. Or there is another candidate. Now this is like Broadway. Oh man, it's come on, you. Well, as you can see, it's a little lake area around here where they could have crossed and the Egyptians could have drowned. So, yes, they wandered around. They got to Israel. Remember, they did get to Israel. Under 40 years, this objection that the Israelites wandered around for 40 years before getting to Israel is just not true. But if you bring it up, atheists will still be defending it. Why? It's not true. It's not true at all. And, of course, Jacob gets his bones brought off. Or this could be the waters that are turned from bitter to sweet. Yes. Literally, chapter 13 and 14 is when they crossed the Red Sea. Then they're at Mount Sinai, which could be just about any of these mountains. They get the Ten Commandments. Yeah, get a little more laws and stuff, which how to make the tabernacle. how to make everything. The making of everything, which probably took a few days, and of course getting a sizable crowd through the desert takes a while. In Leviticus is just a low code. So, on the 12th day of the second month of the second year, on the 20th day, okay, when did they leave Egypt? When does it say they left Egypt? Well, it says for it to be on your first month. And clothing, Lord made the Egyptians, Lord remove the sackcloth and their foot with. So maybe just a few years, the whole wandering, making everything, moving a big group with a lot of animals took a little while longer. But where does the 40 years come from? Because the Israelites were too scared to enter the desert, God sentenced them to wander the desert for 40 years. Yeah, that's where that comes from. So anyway, if you want a better map of this lake, here's a better map. Here's the Suez Canal, Lake Timorish. Here's some stuff about it if you want to. Here's some quick facts about Lake Broadwell, which I'm not using this for much of anything other than just some simple facts. Yes, it's one of those 3 major lakes. Although it's not really much more of a lake anymore. Open water, marshland, and so where reeds probably grow, and bottlenose dolphins. Huh. It did say they used leather, and one translation of the Bible is leather. Leather. Dolphin leather, to be more specific. Interesting. That could be where they got it from. Some students of the Hebrew Exodus out of Egypt mark this location. If you want to look at that book, that is Hobbs Joseph J. February 2019, Mount Sinai, University of Texas Press. I guess I can leave this paper in the. It's not paper, it's a book. Oh, it's buy ebook for $17.99. Well, or I guess if you do have more access to Google Books. Okay, Lake Tremish. There. As you can see, there it is. It was flooded this canal, the Canal of Pharaohs, which was a cool little pre-Suez canal. Yes, it's been attested to since ancient times. So yes, it was there. This isn't just some Suez thing. It's the terminus of the Red Sea. You can look that up in the Columbia Encyclopedia 6th edition, Suez Canal, or this Nouvelle Edouard map of the Wadi Tamab plate imagery, beneath. Which, I guess I can leave those 2 things in the description. Anyway, also, this Great Bitter Lake. Final candidate. How deep does it get? Apparently 92 feet, so yeah. It's not going to be easy cross. Also, something I want to bring up. Also, this has been said since ancient times. Okay. When the king was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, "What have we done? We have let the Israelites go and lost their service." So he had his chariot and he made ready and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots, along with all the other chariots of Egypt. Probably the sixth best, if it's best, was him. With officers over all of them. The Lord hardened in the heart. Just let him do it. Anyway, Pharaoh approached the Israelites, looked up. As Pharaoh approached the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching at them. They said, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Don't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." So, again, why make this up with your ancestors being whiny, doing nothing to save themselves? Why need to go back to slavery? But that's not what I wanted to point out. Moses says, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance of the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you will see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." So yeah, this is when the famous crossing of the Red Sea happens. Pharaoh sends out his men, sends out his army into the Red Sea. You know what Pharaoh was going to do? You know what Pharaoh was going to do around this area? Right here, where the Suez Canal, maybe up here, is. You know what Pharaoh was going to do? You know what he was going to do? He was going to kill as many Israelites as he can and drag all the other ones that survive back to Egypt. Why do you think he brought only chariots? Chariots usually have archers on them to pick them off as they're fleeing. I saw one comment on a video where it wasn't even related to the Bible. It was just a video about general stuff. And like a story, and it talked about like a god being evil. And someone's like, "Oh yeah, who says that God has to be good? The God of the Bible drowned a bunch of Egyptians." I'm not telling you what channel this was on, the video or anything, because I don't want to send hate. A lot of times when people respond to each other, it just spreads hatred. So I prefer people to stay anonymous. Spread hatred. People end up making both sides look bad. It doesn't actually do anything. Much at all. But these Egyptians were about to murder a bunch of Israelites and take the survivors back as slaves to probably treat them very horribly. It's like whining about the U.S. winning the Civil War, the Union winning the Civil War, and saying, "How can good happen when..." It's like, what? These are people escaping slavery and escaping an army about to kill them. Huh? That doesn't make any sense. Yes, Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind. East wind. East is this way, so the wind was blowing this way. And you may think, okay, this is a supernatural event. Actually, no. Not necessarily. The timing of it is special. Like ancient Egypt and the Bible says, if you go watch him, he's a scholar, Egyptologist who does a lot about Egypt in the Bible. So, yeah, it says this is a natural event that can happen. Wind can push water out of people's way. It does happen every once in a while. The timing of it is miraculous, though. So, now, I'm doing, well, I guess that's all for now. Next is a song. But yeah, the idea that they made it all up just doesn't make sense. Abraham's a bum. Isaac is a bum. Jacob is a bum. The Israelites been in slavery their entire existence in Egypt almost. They whine and cry about leaving it. Yeah, usually I thought in mythologies you're supposed to make your people look great. Yeah, Israel did nothing in its own salvation. Oh yeah, and one final thing. The New Testament points out to something. This is the baptism of Israel. Of not only the Israelites of the descendants of Jacob, but of the Gentiles who went with them. They're all Israelites now. They're all going to the land of promise. Anyway, see you next Saturday.